Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Fluffal Yugioh deck profile for June 2025. Wanted to update the Fluffal deck. One of the big plays in the deck, which actually didn't even revolve around the Fluffal and Fluffal Monsters, was the use of Bahamut Shark to get out Totally Awesome. So with the April ban list, we have no longer access to this play or even the Abyss Dweller play as an added option in the deck. So wanted to change around some of the extra deck options along with some of the main deck ratios that I was using for some of the monsters. Big thanks to all of you for helping me out with this deck. It's always nice when I can look back to people's recommendations from previous videos to work on future updates to these decks as well. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So we'll go ahead and start off with the actual Fluffal monsters in the deck. To start off, we're running 3 copies of Fluffal Bear. It's just your search and recycle setup, being able to send this card from your hand to the graveyard to set one toy vendor directly from your deck, and then being able to tribute this card to target a polymerization in your graveyard and add it back to your hand, with polymerization being one of the bigger fusion plays that we use in this deck, having a way to recycle it with Fluffal Bear, but also set up our go-to spell toy vendor much more easily on the field. Also makes this a definite 3-of to always have this search readily available. We're also running 3 copies of Fluffal Penguin. Now, I do have the foreign copies here, but this card just helps for more draw and setup power for your Fluffal resources on the field. It was originally used for the Bahamut play as well, but with this card being the more or less special summon option and then being able to draw 2, discard 1, when you use it for a fusion play, it just helps to get through more of that shifted consistency for you to then use your Fluffal monsters for more of the fusion summons as well, whether we go for the polymerization play or use some of our other Fluffal cards to do so also. Now, the lower numbers for the Fluffal monsters include 2 copies of Fluffal Wings. The big debate between this card was to use, 1 or 2 copies, but just for, consistency, we're running 2 copies of Fluffal Wings. It is searchable with some of the other cards we run in the deck, but if this card's in your graveyard and you control Toy Vendor, you can banish it from your graveyard to target a Fluffal monster in your graveyard, banish it, and then draw 1 card. Then you can send 1 Toy Vendor you control to the graveyard to draw 1 card. So this will give you 2 draws on top of the search after Toy Vendor is sent to the graveyard. So you just have resource after resource added to your hand thanks to this 1 monster. We're also running 2 copies of Fluffal Dolphin, being able to target a toy vendor in our graveyard, set it, and if you do, send 1 Fluffal monster or 1 Edgem Sabers from your deck to the graveyard. If this card is sent to the graveyard as fusion material, you can shuffle into the deck 1 of your fusion spells or polymerization spells that is banished or in your graveyard. So it's recycle power, but also meant to set up the Fluffal Wings in the graveyard as well, thanks to this card, and also reset up the toy vendor play from there also. 2 copies of Fluffal Dog. When it's normal or special summon from the hand, you can add 1 Edgem Sabers or 1 Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, except for Fluffal Dog. You can only use each effect of Dog once per turn, but having more search for any of the Fluffal monsters, as mentioned before, thanks to this other search. And then the big play comes down to Toy Vendor itself, being able to reveal the top card of our deck, and then if it's a Fluffal or Edgem monster, be able to summon it out onto the field. That's where the special summon from the hand comes in play from Fluffal Dog, so if we summon it off a Toy Vendor, we'll still get the search. With the last of the Fluffal monsters being the 1 copy of Fluffal Owl. When it's no more special summon you to your hand, from the hand, you can add 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand, and you can pay 500 life points to fusion summon 1 Fright for fusion from your extra deck with 2 monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. You can only use 1 Fluffal Owl effect per turn, only once that turn, but another polymerization search on top of the other options in the deck, and then the fusion play itself to make use of as well. For the Edgem monsters, we're running 3 copies of Edgem Chain. With this card, when it declares an attack, you can add 1 Edgem Chain from your deck to your hand, giving you more fusion resources in the form of another Edgem monster. And if it's sent from the hand or field of the graveyard, you can add 1 Frightfur card from your deck to your hand, which we have plenty of to search of in the deck also. Frightfur Jar, one of the bigger ones being Frightfur Patchwork, which can also search out an Edgem monster and polymerization, having 2 searches for just 1 spell. 3 copies of Edgem Scythe. If we have the chain play and we search out Patchwork. This is one of the monsters you definitely want to go for the search, because then this card can be used during your opponent's main phase. Quick effect to reveal this card in your hand and fusion summon one Fright for Fusion from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material, including this card in your hand. And if a Fright for Fusion monster you control be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead. So added protection for those Fright for monsters that we also run in the deck. With the last of the Fright for monsters just being the one Edge Imp Sabers. It can be searched off of Fluffal Dog, but once it's set up in the graveyard, just a reusable source by placing one card from your hand on the top of the deck and special summoning this card in defense. So this gives you that resource on the top of the deck to then make use of for a guarantee hit with Toy Vendor, and then special summoning this card to use for our many other fusions, because specifics like Tiger need our Edge Imp Sabers, along with other ones like our Fright for Bear and our Fright for Wolf, all needing sabers for those fusion plays. And then lastly, for the main deck monsters, 3 copies of King of the Swamp. Now, the reason I'm not running any hand traps in this deck, and it was also discussed in the last video, is for the fact that this is a big board breaker type of deck. It is a deck where you want to go second against your opponent, because if you have the proper hand with all the needed Fluffal and Fright for monsters, you could have the potential game-winning hand against your opponent as well to make use of for that play. So King of the Swamp just being another one fusion substitute requirement card and another search for polymerization makes it a definite 3 of as that final search mechanic for plenty of resources in the deck. For the spells, I have 1 copy of Instant Fusion and then the 2 copies of Polymerization. We have over 7 cards alone in the monster lineup that can help to search out this card. For the play, King of the Swamp are Fluffal Owl, and then on top of the draw power that cards like Fluffal Penguin can do, and then also the added recycle power of Fluffal Bear, having all those search options on top of the Fright for Patchwork, which we haven't even gone over. Plenty of ways to get this card in the hand. The Instant Fusion is in here as a way to properly fusion summon out a level 5 Fright for a monster, and then be able to use that resource along with our polymerization to then go into our bigger cards like Fright for Sabertooth. We're also running 3 copies of the mentioned Toy Vendor from before. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card, draw 1 card, show it. Then if it's a Fluffal monster, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand. Otherwise, discard this card you drew. If this card's sent to the graveyard, you can add 1 Edge Imp Sabers or 1 Fluffal monster from your deck to your hand, being able to search out that Edge Imp monster or the Fluffal monster. And then on top of the draw 2, as we mentioned before, with Fluffal Wings, makes this a definite 3 of to always have the resource readily available, whether we set it with our Fluffal Bear or the added setup for being able to just recycle it onto the field with cards like Fluffal Dolphin. 3 copies of Fright for Patchwork. Once again, just another great searcher. You add an Edge Imp monster and 1 polymerization from your deck to your hand. So if you search this off of Edge Imp Chain, you can then use this card to grab cards like our Edge Imp Scythe and then the needed polymerization for more fusion plays from there. And also, the one-ups for our Fright for cards include the 1 copy of Fright for Fusion, the 1 Fright for Reborn, and then the 1 Fright for Repair, being able to have more or less resource special summon thanks to Fright for Repair, special summoning the Fright for monster back from the graveyard, and then the Miracle Fusion-like play of being able to banish monsters from our field or graveyard to summon out a Fright for monster. And all these cards are, once again, also searchable from our go-to card, Edge Imp Chain. And then for the rest of the spells, 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. This card's really, really good in the deck, whether we have the added setup for the Fright for Jar, which is in our trap lineup, or the mention of the Toy Vendor just being able to be sent off of Foolish Burial Goods and then have the search off of this card. It's just a good opener for those cards as well, with the remaining spells being the 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Now, I like this card in the main deck because, as mentioned before, this is a going second deck. You want to go second against your opponent. So with the Lightning Storm, you can either clear out the opponent's back row or their monster lineup. There are other cards that can destroy cards in this deck, like Fright for a Tiger, but going into your big fusion plays, if you can clear out anything that could be a disruptor against you, that's where Lightning Storm comes in handy, being able to clear out those monsters or those spells, and then have no fear when you're doing your fusion plays. With the remaining main deck cards being the 1 copy of Fright for Jar. This card's name becomes Toy Vendor while on the field or in the graveyard. Once per turn, you can discard 1 card to draw 1 card, then show it if it's an Edge Imp monster. You can destroy 1 card in the field, otherwise place 1 card from your hand on the top or bottom of the deck, and if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, half its attack till the end of this turn. So once again, another search option off of the Foolish Barrel Goods to send to disrupt one of your opponent's monster plays, but also being able to make use of Fluffal Dolphin to then place this card as a set on the field if we already have the other toy vendor option as just another sifter through our cards using this, since it does count as toy vendor in the graveyard. For the extra deck, we're running 2 copies of Frightfur Tiger. When this card is fusion summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of fusion materials used for its fusion summon, destroy them. All Frightfur monsters you control gain 300 attack for each Fluffal monster and Frightfur monster you control. You can only control 1 Frightfur Tiger. We run 2, so we have those double options for the destruction plays. And with this card, it also helps for the initial OTK we can do against our opponent, revolving around this and Frightfur Wolf also. So 2. Just once again going second, using cards like Lightning Storm, destroying their resources, and then using Tiger to destroy the remaining ones, whichever ones we didn't destroy on our opponent's field. The 2 copies of Frightfur Sheep, the instant fusion target on top of the extra restrictions against our opponent when this card attacks, and then the special summon power when it's destroyed by an opponent's card and sent to the graveyard. So having the special summon this card and having it gain 800 attack after it is summoned back onto the field. The 1 copy of Cruel Whale as one of the better cards to use with the Edgem Scythe, since it has a destruction effect when it's fusion summoned, being able to destroy 1 card on both players' field, and then being able to target a fusion monster you control, send 1 Frightfur card from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard, except Cruel Whale, and then the targeted monster gains attack equal to half the original attack until the end of turn. So, more or less, added destruction power, once again, one of the better targets for Scythe. The 1 Frightfur Bear, just as an added option to destroy and equip onto it as well. The 1 Frightfur Wolf, it's part of the OTK play, as mentioned before, in this deck, along with the 1 Frightfur Kraken with its send option against our opponent. Daredevil for some of the bigger destruction plays of our opponent's monsters. And then the bigger fusions include the 2 Sabertooths, which need 1 Frightfur fusion monster, plus 1 or more Fluffal and or Edgem monster. And when it's fusion summoned, you can target a Frightfur in your graveyard, summon it back, and all Frightfur monsters you control gain 400 attack. And if this card was fusion summoned using 3 or more fusion materials, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. So just being able to use the instant fusion for Frightfur Sheep, using this for another monster as the fusion play to make Sabertooth, and then summon the Frightfur monster used for its fusion back onto the field as just an additional monster resource, with the remaining extra deck being the 1 Donner Dagger for Hire, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and then the 1 Boral Sword to finish off the Link monsters, and the 1 Sky Crisis for just an additional overlay option if our opponent special summons 2 or more times from the extra deck and we need more of a bounce power in the deck to make use of. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, now as I mentioned also, the bigger play with the OTK revolves around the polymerization, our setup needing Edge Imp Sabers, which both of these cards could ideally be searched off of Patchwork, so remember that as one of the potential one-of options with this card. And then the needed play being our go-to setup, whether it be with our Fluffal Dog or the added search consistency with Toy Vendor being set up. You name it, whichever one you want to use for that play. If you have these cards in your hand, let's go off of the 1 additional Fluffal monster just for the added search power that this card can provide as well. So if you have at least a setup similar to this in your hand, what you'll do is you'll activate the Patchwork, adding the 2 mentioned cards from before to your hand, normal summoning out the Fluffal Dog for the added search. Now this card especially can be used for the search for our needed card, whether it be Edgem Sabers. If we had that additional monster, we could also use the Patchwork to then add our Edge Imp Chain to our hand for that play as well. So then from here, we can use the Dog to search the Saber, having these 4 cards in our hand. We can then use the Fluffal Bear, sending it to the graveyard to then set up the Toy Vendor on the field, activating the Toy Vendor for this initial play as well. For this card, being able to then use Toy Vendor to send off the Edge Imp Chain to then reveal the top card of my deck, and if it is a Fluffal monster, you can special summon 1 monster from your hand, otherwise discard 1 card. Now before, if you want a guaranteed search off of this card, what you can do with this play is you have the added search from the Edgem Sabers and the Fluffal Dog. So from here, you can activate your polymerization, using it to fuse your Dog and your Sabers for the fusion summon of your Frightfur Tiger on onto the field. And then from here, use Tiger to destroy the 2 cards that your opponent has. Thanks to those cards, you have now the setup of your 2 monsters, being the 2 Fluffals and the 1 Edgem Sabers in the graveyard, thanks to that fusion play. With that, you can then use the needed Edgem Sabers in the graveyard, placing 1 card from your hand on the top of the deck. So with this, ideally, if you had 1 more Fluffal monster in your hand, that would be the better use of the card, because then you can take that Fluffal monster, place it on the top of the deck, and then use the effect of Sabers to special summon itself back onto the field, and then use the effect of the Toy Vendor, discarding your Edgem Chain to then draw and reveal that added monster to summon onto the field as well. Thanks to that play, Edgem Chain will then activate since it was sent from the hand or field of the graveyard, being able to add our Frightfur Fusion. So then, with that initial play, we activate the Frightfur Fusion using the Edgem Sabers, the Dolphin, and then the 2 additional Fluffal monsters banished in our graveyard to then be able to summon out the Frightfur Wolf onto the field. So then we've cleared out our opponent's field with the needed monster, and then the Frightfur Wolf being able to then attack a number of times each battle phase up to the fusion materials for its fusion summon being the 4, so that is 4 attacks in total with the added boost from Frightfur Tiger, being over 10,000 attack right here to swing into your opponent with these 2 monsters. Once again, that's why I said this is the best deck when it is going second against your opponent. Some of the better plays also revolve around the added setup that you can use with your go-to Edge Imp Scythe play as well, because with this card, when you have the added go-to, it can just be another card to rely on for your cards on the field as well. So Patchwork can be able to search this and Polymerization once again. And then if you have, let's say, I don't want to say a weaker hand to utilize, but having the option of just that additional Fluffal monster in your hand, if you don't have much else to go for, you can use the fusion play with Polymerization. But still, I would say the better play is just to rely on that monster and then the Edgem Scythe to then be able to go into the Cruel Whale play as a destruction means against your opponent thanks to that 1 monster. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed. As I said, I was very happy with the update since the last video and needed changes as well since we've had the ban list since this deck also. But until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.